Ayala, Riveters team reporter here with Riveters Captain Madison Packer. You are entering your 7th season. That's kind of wild.
Yeah.
What have the past 6 years been like on this Rivs team?
Every year is different. I think I say it a lot. If you would have told me 7 years ago that we'd be sitting here, I wouldn't have believed it. A lot of highs, a lot of lows. Played with a lot of incredible people. Played under a lot of incredible coaches. Like I said, every year is different, but it's been fun. I'm grateful that I continue to have opportunities in the league. I'm grateful for the friends that I've made, and hopefully have a few more seasons left in my legs.
Here's hoping. I mean, we've already got an Isabel Cup. You've been the captain of an all-star team, captain now of this team for a handful of years. I mean, just even off of the ice, though, what has some of the growth been like for you as being part of this franchise?
Yeah, I think I've matured a lot. When I started, I was living in a bedroom in Brooke Ammerman's house. Didn't have much responsibility outside of getting myself to and from the rink. Now I'm married, have a house, have a son. So life away from hockey looks very different. But it's fun. I mean, I obviously go out less with the team, but I'm kind of viewed as like an elder, which is different. But it's fun. I enjoy coming to the rink. I learn a lot from the younger kids, and like I said, I'm just grateful to have the opportunity to learn from them, both on and off the ice. And it's been incredibly rewarding, my time in the now PHF.
Yeah, and I mean, you talk about some of that growth, and I think as someone who's been able to be around the Riveters for a while and cover you, even in that semi-retirement that we had, I've seen personal growth as well. And I think that you've found your voice a little bit more, including that, I guess, going into now your 3rd season, that you've really taken up the mantle when it comes to being part of a greater conversation about mental health awareness. Where did that come from, Madison, and why did you choose to utilize this platform to talk about mental health?
Yeah, so I think for me it started back in high school. I lost a teammate to suicide when I was 17, and it was hard. I didn't understand it. I didn't know how to process it. It was the first time that someone my age was just taken without any really reason or explanation. And so I spent a long time like wondering why that happened, what happened. And it was really personal for me because it was someone, I mean, she was a big part of why I went on to achieve a lot of success in hockey. I mean, she went to extra skills skates with me. She passed me the puck constantly after practice. So for me, it was hard that like I looked at it like I couldn't help someone who clearly needed help, and it was someone that had helped me so much. And so that was when I got involved. I got involved with Project Semicolon. I got involved with an organization called Common Ground, and just did a lot of like research and community work to try and figure out why I missed it, if that makes sense. And I never really got that answer of why, because you don't get that answer, right? I just realized that there were more people struggling with mental health than I was in tune with, even myself included. Like, I have anxiety attacks, I have panic attacks. I wouldn't go out to the world and say I have a mental health disorder, but I know what it's like to have anxiety. I have a wife who struggled a lot with postpartum depression after our son was born. And it's something that's really shameful. Nobody talks about it because you feel like there's something wrong with you. You feel like you can't say anything, you'll be looked at differently. And I mean, what brought it all full circle really was my hometown has been crushed by the mental health suicide tandem. More kids than I can count that I went to high school with have taken their own lives, and it's sad because it's just something that doesn't make any sense, and there are resources, there are ways to help people who feel like they don't have any other answers, and we're failing those people right now. So we need to be more vocal, we need to have more resources, and we need people to know that it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to have a bad day. That's a theme in the Riveters locker room, that if you're having a bad day, don't come on the ice. If you're having a bad day and you want to come but you don't want to play, like, come sit on the bench, come to my house. Like, the door is always open. And I think that it's important for people to feel like they have people, and it's okay to talk about it.
Well, first of all, Madison, thank you for sharing that. And, you know, we have had conversations about this topic before, and you've opened up about there being kind of this stigma around talking about mental health, being supportive, knowing the right things to say, all of those things. And I hear you, and I've seen you over the years try to figure that out for yourself, as you said, wanting to be someone who is there, and you talked a little bit about Anya and all of those things. For you though, what have been some of the resources that you've found comforting as you're still trying to educate yourself whilst also being a mental health advocate?
I think the biggest one for me is also having people to talk to. I started going to therapy again maybe a year ago, a little less than a year ago. I went through some stuff, lost someone close to me, and it was hard. And I felt like I was doing everything I could to help all these people around me, and I didn't feel like I had help. And so for me, the biggest resource is just talking and like obviously being there for other people. But you know, I've learned a lot from Brooke Avery too. She's very vocal and very open, and is a really good friend to me. And she says it all the time, like you do everything all the time. Like you don't have to do this, and like just gives me a day. And she's my person, and she carries the load in the locker room. The biggest resource is just talking and being open and honest about how I feel. I talk to the coaches every now and then and let them know that, I mean, there's a lot of us have stuff going on away from the rink, and just being in tune with each other, that while hockey is our world while we're here, there's a whole other world outside of this one. And making sure that I'm open and honest with people about how I'm feeling, how other people in our locker room are feeling. And I think that's the biggest one, is just having people to talk to is a phenomenal resource.
And I mean, that can be such a breath of fresh air, almost like giving someone permission to breathe and to take in everything that they're feeling. So I love that you talk about that as part of the Riveters team. And I mentioned that for the last handful of years, you've been able to utilize your platform as a captain on the Riveters, as a part of this league, to talk about mental health and mental health awareness. And one of the things that I'd noticed is that you picked up with the Kyle Pavone Foundation. But can you tell us a little bit about the Pavone family and the Kyle Pavone Foundation and how you got involved there?
Yeah, so Kyle was a childhood friend of mine. We grew up TPing each other's houses and running around the neighborhood, just being kids. His family had two boys that were about the same age as my younger brother and myself. And my Bennett and Connor, the younger brother, played hockey together. And then, like everybody does, like you grow up, you move on with your life. Kyle was a successful frontman for the We Came as Romans band. And he died from an accidental drug overdose in 2018. Similar kind of thing, like that was world stopping for me, because it was someone who I grew up with, somebody whose family still lived in the same neighborhood as my family, and I was blindsided. I had no idea. And I started doing some outreach just to like try and get some answers, and connected with the Pavone family about how I could help support their foundation. My teammates and players around the league were incredibly supportive. I think the first thing, I wore a hat for a couple games, and then at the All-Star game, all my teammates wore buttons. Some players donated money to their foundation. But it really was, like, that was the tip of the iceberg. And then you and I have talked a little, like I started doing more research and finding out, like trying to find a why, like how did we get there, right? And everybody's story is different, but I think just in general, most people don't recognize the epidemic that is hitting our country right now. I've said it before to you, I've said it to other people. Drug overdose is the leading cause of death in our country right now, which is staggering and alarming when you think about all the other things that people die from and are sick with. And it's similar, there's a stigma associated with it. No one wants to talk about drug overdose, no one wants to talk about substance abuse, and it's confusing to me why, because nobody wakes up in the morning and is like, I want to be an alcoholic, or I want to have a drug problem, right? I mean, it's an illness, it's a disease like cancer or heart disease, and these people need help, and they don't get it because we associate drug users with like homeless people or people who have done something wrong to find themselves on the streets using drugs, and that's not the case. moms, dads, sons, friends, brothers, sisters, and it's people that need help. And right now, as a society, we have cast those people out rather than recognizing that there are people who need help, same as people who are dying from cancer, and they need resources, they need facilities to get them back on their feet, and they need more people to talk about it and care about it, because if we keep going at the rate that we're going now, there won't be many people left.
And I see you wearing your hat, "It's okay not to be okay." And what I hear, Madison, is that you are really trying to be someone that lives by that and create space on your team, in your life, to have people just tap in or out. And so that brings me to that yet again, with this Riveters team, you're finding different ways to continue to have this conversation and open up yourself and this hockey community to having conversations, sometimes difficult conversations, about mental health and being supportive. So on December 18th, the Riveters are going to host a mental health awareness game, and there will be jerseys that will be unveiled and worn by the team. And I hear that you had a say in the design element and bringing some things that you've been talking about to the ice in the form of a uniform. What can you tell us about those jerseys and that weekend?
Yeah, so when I signed my contract back in June, I talked with the GM and the coaches, and one condition of my contract was that we would do a mental health awareness game, because I thought it was important. I know that we do different theme games, and so that was, I thought, a small thing that we could do to, there's other people in our locker room that are also passionate about it, so I thought it was a small thing that we could do to make a difference. Our design team and Justin Cox did a great job with putting some jerseys together. They included a phrase that the M14 line is also going to do hats that say "Let's talk about it," and then on the back there'll be a purple ribbon and a yellow ribbon, which are the overdose awareness and suicide awareness ribbons. And then all of the proceeds from those hats are going to go to the Heron Project, which is a non-for-profit that provides beds to people who need help, basically, in the communities that are hardest hit right now by the drug epidemic, but they also provide counseling and psych resources to people who have mental health struggles. That phrase is going to go on one side of the jersey, sublimated, then the other side will say "It's okay not to be okay," which you touched on, I think is important. Like, it's not just, oh, it's okay not to be okay. Like, it's important for people to know that it's okay to have a bad day. It's okay to feel off. It's okay to not, like, be on your game all the time. Everybody has bad days. Everybody struggles with depression at some point. I had a panic attack in the locker room 2 weekends ago after the first period. No idea why, but like, it happens. And it's important for people to know that that's okay, that you don't have to be 100% of the time, because it's impossible. And so the subtle, like, phrases on the side of the sleeves, I think, is important. And then obviously the jersey is navy with green accents, green being the color for mental health.
And as we close, Madison, I mean, you have so many accolades, what people would consider accomplishments in the sport, in life. NCAA title, Isabel Cup. You mentioned your wife and your son, baby Way. I mean, there's just so many things. I wonder where you see this aspect of your career as a hockey player and as the person, Madison Packer. Like, what does success look like as you continue on as a mental health advocate?
I think for me, it's probably the most important thing I'm doing, aside from being a parent, but they kind of work hand in hand. I mean, I look at my generation now and the rate of suicide, the rate of people who have mental health problems who don't get help, don't ask for help. And it's sad to me. It feels like we've failed in a way. So for me, I want the next Madison Packer, the next Kendall Coyne, Janiga, Russo, whatever it might be, that little kid to know that they can play sports and they can be honest about how they're feeling, and they're going to have the resources they need to be supported. And you know, I think that we might be the only team in the league that has a full psych group available to us when we need it. That's a thing that Anya put in place that I think is a huge accomplishment and is not something that should be taken lightly. You know, we have resources whenever we need them to get, you know, have someone to talk to. So for me, I think that success is just that, having the next generation of athletes in whatever sport, and just people in general, honestly, feeling like they are supported and having more empathy toward one another. You never know what somebody's going through, and I think at the end of all of it, like you touched on some of my accomplishments, truly none of it matters to me. I hope that people remember me as being a good person, being a teammate that they felt was there for them, and that they have the courage at some point to do what I'm doing. I mean, I think that it's great that we're sitting here having this conversation, but my hope is that more people see the conversation and have a conversation of their own. I know that our team as a whole, I've got a locker room full of people who have gotten me to this point. 7 years ago, I wouldn't be sitting here having this conversation, right? So it takes a lot to come out and have a conversation about something so taboo, if you will. But it's my teammates who have pushed me to get there, and so hopefully there are more people down the road who are willing to do the same, and we can slowly make a difference.
Well, Madison, we thank you for being open and giving of your time, particularly on this topic. We look forward to you and the rest of the Riveters on December 18th, continuing the conversation and opening that up for the hockey community to know that they are truly supported and that there's always someone there to lend a helping hand. So thank you for all the work that you do.
Thank you. I appreciate your time and giving me a platform to have the conversation.